Welcome in, everybody, to the Rebel Report. Glad to see you on this Thursday night. My name is Michael Borky. Appreciate you being here. Obviously not live tonight. I've got something that I need to go take care of the second I am done recording this, but I wanted to bring you a new episode, a final preview. As I record this, we're about 20 hours away from Ole Miss, North Carolina in the NCAA Tournament. Got a couple of interviews coming your way. Really excited about them. They were both really good as like a final preview of this game between, again, Ole Miss and North Carolina. Before we get into those, I want to invite you to please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and subscribe to the podcast feed wherever you get them. I would recommend Spotify myself, but wherever you get your podcast, just search Rebel Report and subscribe and leave a rating and a review if you like what you hear anyway. And also, this edition of the podcast is presented by the Gregory Law Firm. DJ Gregory of the Gregory Law Firm can take care of you anywhere in Mississippi. If you have been personally injured, don't waste another second. Wake up tomorrow, call DJ Gregory at 662-397-9799. Also, small business if you're a small business owner. If you want to start a small business and you don't really know how to cross your T's and dot your I's, he's got you covered. DJ Gregory of the Gregory Law Firm, 662-397-9799. So obviously the first round of the NCAA tournament went on today and is still going on right now. What do you think about the ACC? I'm curious. You had Clemson go down to McNeese despite a furious comeback at the end. Louisville got absolutely stomped by Creighton. On the flip side, though, the SEC, not a particularly good start to the tournament. Texas loses last night. Georgia got smoked today, but Auburn did win despite a weird first half in which they didn't really play well. Does that impact tomorrow? Not really at all. But the ACC looking fraudulent. The SEC looking fraudulent. So something's got to give tomorrow at 3 o'clock. How about we talk about the game from the Tar Heel perspective? This is Adam Lucas. He writes at GoHeels.com. He also co-hosts the Carolina Insider podcast. So if you're looking for some last-minute game preview from their perspective, Carolina_pod on Twitter is where you can find him. Really good stuff there. I enjoyed this interview with Adam Lucas. So I'll bring that to you right now, previewing from the Tar Heel perspective, Ole Miss and North Carolina.
Tuesday night, North Carolina absolutely dominant over San Diego State. How did that happen?
Yeah, that's a great question. If you had watched Carolina play in January, you would have said there was no chance of that ever occurring. The Tar Heels have just played with so much more intensity. They really defended well. San Diego State's obviously a tough team and makes their reputation on defense, the leading field goal percentage defense team in the country, and Carolina just took them apart. It always helps when you shoot the ball. Roy Williams always used to say everything looks better when the ball goes in the basket. That was some of it on Tuesday night. But just the version of Elliot Cadeau that Carolina got on Tuesday is better than any version of Cadeau we've seen in the last couple of months. And he was a big part of it, of enabling Carolina to run, to play in transition, and that's when they're at their best.
And, you know, it's funny, Chris Beard in his media tour, as all coaches do this week, talked about, hey, North Carolina or anybody can expose, quote-unquote, our transition defense. So that's something that you know that Ole Miss is going to be concerned about. North Carolina, if they get out and run, Ole Miss has struggled at times in transition. So I'm glad you mentioned that.
Well, and I think, too, Sean Padula has played against this for a while, so it's not anything that's going to take him by surprise. And Chris Beard, obviously one of the best coaches in America, who's got a little bit longer to prepare for it than San Diego State did. That was such a whirlwind turnaround because you're having to play a team that, honestly, you have no familiarity with at all, and travel was a bit of a mess. Their practice time was limited. I think Ole Miss is in a little better spot preparation-wise than either San Diego State or Carolina was, but as we saw on Tuesday, you never know. Sometimes you just shoot it and it goes in and you look like you're really smart.
Yeah, R.J. Davis, I don't think he's a 100% three-point shooter on the season, but he was on Tuesday. Our audience was a little surprised at the fact that he is, on tops of all of these all-time scoring lists, both in the ACC and at North Carolina, considering the history in that conference, specifically at that school. But beyond the records, what does he present to Ole Miss? Like, what is his strengths? What are maybe some of his weaknesses as Matt Morrell and the aforementioned Sean Padula prepare to try to lock him up?
Well, you got to remember he's been here 5 years, so that helps you on a list where a lot of those other guys have maybe only played 3, or sometimes 4 at the most. So that's part of the explanation for why he's so high on so many record books. But the other explanation is he has really shot the ball well. He was Player of the Year in the ACC last year because he was so consistent. He really struggled through the first half of this year, and that's why a lot of his percentages for this season are not what they were last season. But if you break him out over the last 12-ish games, most of his percentages are back where they were last year and what would have been his senior year. He's gotten better shots because Carolina's gone to a bigger lineup, so he hasn't had to work against guys a lot bigger than him as consistently. And I think he's just relaxed a little bit. He was trying to be the Player of the Year for the first half of the season. And here recently, he's looked more like the guy who's just the R.J. Davis that we've grown accustomed to over these last 5 years.
Over the last 11 games, North Carolina's lost 2 of them, and both of them close to Duke. How were they able to there's no moral victories in major college basketball, especially in a rivalry, but been a pretty impressive stretch. What changed for North Carolina over the last 11 games?
Part of it is a lineup change. They put Jalen Withers in the lineup instead of trying to play so many small guards all at once. Withers has shot the ball well, mostly with a couple of hiccups. So he enables the Carolina offense to be a little more productive. He can stand in the corner, and teams have to guard him, and that opens up some driving lanes for Cadeau and Davis and sometimes even Seth Trimble. So if he's making shots, Carolina's offense is just a lot better. And defensively, he gives them some versatility. He can guard some different positions. The Tar Heels aren't as overmatched. For example, in the first meeting with Duke, they tried to guard Cooper Flagg with Seth Trimble, and that's just not going to work. So second time around, they just match up better, and that's made them more effective both on offense and on defense.
We talk all the time around here about Malik Dia, Ole Miss's big man. He's approaching 7 foot tall. He's skilled offensively, but at times he's been played off the floor by teams with big physical guys on the block. What kind of challenge is he facing with North Carolina? What's that matchup from the Tar Heels side going to look like for Malik Dia?
The underrated guy for this run for Carolina has been Alan Lubin, who y'all would remember playing at Vanderbilt last year. Well-traveled guy who started at Notre Dame, then he went to Vanderbilt, now he's at Carolina. He was not effective the first half of the season or so, but this second half of the season, he has been much better. He's on a streak of, I think, 5 double-doubles in the last 7 games, and he's scored in double figures in the last 8 games in a row. He's really been good. He's not big at all. Somehow he gets a lot of offensive rebounds. He and Elliot Cadeau have been really good in the pick and roll. That'll be something Carolina will look to use a lot. They've developed a really good chemistry with that, with Lubin rolling towards the basket and Cadeau finding him either with a lob or with a pocket pass. I don't think I would describe him as overly physical, but he seems to get the job done. And then backing him up is Jalen Washington, who's in his 3rd year at Carolina. Just hadn't been able to put on a ton of weight. I think the Tar Heels were hoping he was going to be the starter this year, but he just hasn't been consistent enough. So the hope would be he comes in and gives them maybe 10-ish minutes or so and grabs a couple of rebounds.
I'm going to ask you the inverse of this question in a second, but what is the biggest source of concern, in your opinion, for North Carolina? What's the thing that they should be worried about the most going into this game?
Well, when they get out-rebounded, they lose. And when they don't shoot the ball well from 3, they lose. They're now 21-5 when shooting at least 30% from 3. And 30% from 3 is not really that high a bar. But there have been games where the Tar Heels have been down in the low 20s. So they can't get on one of these stretches where they miss, kind of like what Clemson's going through right now, where they miss 9 out of 10 or something in a row. And get behind. And the other source of concern is just playing 40 full minutes. There's been too many times this year where Carolina gets down by 20 and then has to have this furious comeback to get back in the game. We've been saying all year you cannot do that in the NCAA tournament because you're going to be done. So they have to play the same 40 minutes that they did against San Diego State on Tuesday night.
And then, of course, the flip side. What is the biggest, or what should be the biggest source of confidence for North Carolina people and fans and stuff going into this game?
I think it's just that they look more like a Carolina basketball team than they did a month ago. that version of the Tar Heels was not very recognizable. Some of the things like the shooting are variable. You can't expect to shoot 60% from three every night. But the defensive intensity the other night, you can replicate that. The execution on offense, you can replicate that. So those are the things that they've got to be able to do, whether the shots are going in or not.
Who would be like an unsung X factor in this game? So you mentioned a couple of the starters, Davis, who's been there forever. Who's somebody that you don't immediately think of would be a big-time impactful player that could have a chance to do just that tomorrow afternoon?
I think Seth Trimble's going to be a storyline. He's playing back home in Milwaukee. He's from Menominee Falls, which is just up the road in Wisconsin. So he's going to have a ton of people there, and that's always a big variable as to how guys respond to that. He's important to Carolina defensively. He's probably their best on-the-ball defender there in the backcourt. And then when he can be consistent going to the basket and finishing, he's a really good weapon on offense. There have been times this year where he just has not finished consistently. He's looked like he thought he was going to get fouled too often. And then when the contact doesn't come, he misses the shot and kind of lays on the ground and looks confused. But when he's consistently finishing, because he is so athletic, he's a weapon. He's not a guy, I don't think, who's going to shoot you out of the game from three because he makes 5 of them or something. But he can hurt opponents going to the basket, and that's something he'll look to do.
Great stuff there from Adam Lucas of GoHeels.com. Before we get to our second interview, professional talker, can't talk. I want to tell you that the podcast is brought to you in part by Toyota of Brookhaven. Exit 40 in Brookhaven or online at toyotaofbrookhaven.com. The car buying experience can be a frustrating one. You don't just want to reduce yourself to the dealership that may be in your backyard. You want somebody that's going to take care of you, not try to get one over on you. They're going to treat you like a person. That's what's going to happen at Toyota of Brookhaven. Check out their online inventory. So if you don't live in the area, but you want to know what they got, you know they'll take care of you. But if you want to know what they got, check out that online inventory at toyotaofbrookhaven.com. Tell them I sent you. $1,000 on me if you get a new Toyota, any in-stock new Toyota at Toyota of Brookhaven. $1,000 on me if you just tell them that I sent you. They have a service department that is one of the highest rated in the entire state of Mississippi. They're open 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Monday through Friday, so pretty convenient for you before or after work or before or after school. Interest rates as low as 1.99% on in-stock new Tundras. Check them out. Toyota of Brookhaven. Great service, great savings at Toyota of Brookhaven. They deliver. Interview number 2, the great Michael Katz. I'm a big fan of him. He covers Ole Miss for the Daily Journal. He landed in Milwaukee and hopped on with me for this interview. So hope you guys enjoy this one. Obviously, looking at this game from the Ole Miss perspective, here is the great Michael Katz from the Daily Journal right now.
So this game coming up tomorrow, just your initial, when you saw North Carolina dominate the way they did on Tuesday night, what were your initial thoughts about the matchup for Ole Miss?
I mean, I guess my first thoughts were this is what happens when you tell a team for 3 days it's no good and that it shouldn't be in the tournament, and it happens to be a blue blood with really good players on it still. So, listen, they were absolutely dominant against San Diego State. That game was out of hand in the first 10 minutes or so. Listen, I know North Carolina has not had the year that people expected. I think they were a top 10 preseason team, and I know they were a 1 seed last year, and they were in the national title game just a few years ago. It's been a little bit of a weird season for them, but they've really hit their stride the last few months. I don't think they've lost to anybody other than Duke in the last couple of months.
They've won 9 of their last 11, and the only 2 are Duke. You're right.
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously they're playing very well, and RJ Davis, when he's on, he's on. So I guess that's just a long way of saying it's tough to see a team that I think everybody thought was going to be good hit its stride right when you're about to play them. But at the same time, I do think it's not the worst matchup for Ole Miss in terms of the things that each team does well. And I say that because Ole Miss, we know when Ole Miss has fared poorly this year, it's because of dominant bigs, and it's rebounding. The rebounding that's been something that we've talked about all year. North Carolina is not a very good rebounding team, and so I think that with what North Carolina does in terms of being sort of guard heavy, I think that works for Ole Miss because Ole Miss is good against guards for the most part. It's low post guys who can kind of beat them up. So I think all things considered, it's pretty good. But yeah, North Carolina's playing really well right now, and those athletes are starting to show.
And I mean, it's almost like a broken record. Anytime we talk about Ole Miss on this show, you have to mention if they get the Malik Dia that he can be, Ole Miss's ceiling is really, really high, and we've seen it in spurts. He's been pretty good, frankly, a lot lately. He's been much better down the stretch than earlier in the season, but this does feel like a big opportunity for Malik Dia. Like you said, North Carolina, they've got explosive athletes on the block, but lacking in size. He will be the biggest guy that plays consistent minutes in this game. If he steps up, they have a great chance. The question is if, despite him being pretty consistently good lately.
Yeah, and sometimes Malik Dia, he is very he's versatile. He can hit threes, and sometimes he falls in love with the shots from deep. And I'm sure that Ole Miss would probably like him to take himself a little bit into the post a little bit more, because he's really good down there, and he is a really strong player, and he's really good around the basket. He finishes really well, and in a game like tomorrow, I think he can be a bully against North Carolina with his size and skill. And so I think the last thing they need from him is him falling in love with the perimeter game. His shots will fall from deep. There's no question from time to time. But I think what they need from him is that guy who can be a bruiser down low. Because like you said, when he's been good this year, he's been one of their X factors, and we have seen him against teams who maybe don't have great size be the best big in those games, and I think he's going to have to be that tomorrow.
Sean Padula was the hero against Arkansas, but if we're being honest, the last two games that Ole Miss has played, he has not shot well at all from the outside. He's defended like mad, but hasn't made outside shots. You've got to imagine that there may be a little bit of quote-unquote pressure on his shoulders to knock down some of these open threes. He's gotten great looks. They're not beating North Carolina tomorrow without a better performance from the outside from the likes of him and Murray and Morrell as well.
Oh, without question, and I think it's especially been tough this year because Matthew Morrell has had those injuries, and he just hasn't quite been the Matt Morrell that we've seen for 4 years. Who's when he last year he was really efficient from three. He was just an efficient scorer. He looked like the guy who was the big time recruit. And this year he's had the injuries and just hasn't really he's had spurts here and there, but he hasn't really come around fully. So maybe a little bit of time off helped that, but. No, absolutely. Padula's had to pick up a lot of slack on the perimeter, and Juju Murray has sometimes he's disappeared a few times. And so it's been very Padula heavy, and I know Padula, he wants to be that guy. He wants to be the guy who takes the big shots. But absolutely, Ole Miss is at its best when one they've got guys like Dia doing stuff down low, but two when they're hitting shots from the outside, because in every game where they shoot well from three. They do not lose those games for the most part. So, they're going to need guys like Murray. They're going to need guys like Matt. They're going to need guys like Eduardo Klefki, who hit a really big three in the SEC tournament against Arkansas, I believe it was. It's going to be all hands on deck, but they're going to need some scoring guards to help out with what Sean's doing, because, like you said, his last couple games have been pretty tough.
I know you're a story guy, of course, and you're excellent at it. You've got a couple of interesting angles here, especially if Ole Miss can win, something that you can write about tomorrow after the game. Chris Beard coached against Sean Padula when Padula was at Virginia Tech in Milwaukee in the NCAA tournament. The last time Padula was there, they coached and played against each other. And for Murray, the last time he played in the NCAA tournament, he was at St. Peter's, and they ultimately got eliminated by North Carolina.
Isn't that wild? Like, college basketball is I guess college sports in general right now are so crazy, because you have guys start writing their stories one place, and then within a few years they end up somewhere else, and it all sort of intertwines and comes back around in some way. But no, the Chris Beard Padula story I thought was actually really funny. He was asked about that a couple days ago, and he said he didn't really take in Milwaukee a ton. He said it was a great city, but what he does remember, I believe that Chris Beard, I believe that Texas team won, correct?
Yes, they did.
Yeah, he made sure to let Padula remember that part of it, which I thought was pretty funny. But yeah, and I mean honestly, who could forget Juju Murray in that St. Peter's run? What they did. And I know he was a younger player on that team, but he's been here before, and I think they're going to need guys like that because let's be honest, there aren't a ton of guys on this team who have been to the tournament. You've got Murray and you've got Padula and you've got David Barnes, but Jalen Breakfield's never been there. He was on the Duke team that didn't make it before he came to Ole Miss. Matt Morrell's never been there. A lot of your big-time guys have never been in this situation before, so you're going to need those guys to come up big for sure.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. Somebody like a Jamin Brakefield played a ton of basketball. He's a veteran leader. All of the things that you can say about him are true, but he has not been in this spot. And I wonder how he will, quote-unquote, handle it. You expect probably really well because of how mature he is, but still, this is new territory for him.
Absolutely, but I think the thing that is going to really help this team, and I'm not saying it's going to be the reason that things go a certain way, but I think it really does help that they have a coach and a staff that has been through this many times. And no, it hasn't been with Ole Miss, but Chris Beard knows what he's doing in the tournament. He's taken 4 Division I teams to the tournament. He was an overtime away from winning the national title with Texas Tech. He's done it everywhere he's been. He knows the sorts of things that can impact games. I asked him about that, and he brought up some really interesting things, like things that I wouldn't have thought of, like that he needs to tell players that like timeouts are longer in the NCAA tournament because of the ads. You're going to have different practice times. You're going to have media obligations. Like there's all of these. In the first couple rounds, you're going to be dealing with somewhat neutral crowds a lot of the time. It's not going to have the same emotion that a lot of SEC games had. So I thought it was really interesting that he was trying to tell the guys on the team, including Jamin and all Matt and all those guys, that things are different in the tournament, and the sooner you can get those things out of the way and not have them complicate things, the better. Because you know what? If you lose North Carolina because they were a better team, so be it. But you don't want to lose because the tournament was too big for you.
Michael, you're the best, man. Enjoy your time. And
that was Michael Katz of the Daily Journal. Really good stuff from him as well. The podcast is brought to you in part by Advantage Business Systems. Check them out online at absms.com. If you're a Mississippi business, anywhere in Mississippi, and you're in the market for office technology, tell them that I sent you, by the way. You'll get a complimentary office technology assessment. But whatever you need technology-wise in the office, absms.com, Advantage Business Systems, will take care of you anywhere in Mississippi. The podcast is also brought to you in part by Priority One Bank. They've got local loan servicing and decision-making, so you don't need to get on Zoom or talk to somebody out of state if you want a loan or if you have a loan through them and you need it serviced. It's somebody that you build a relationship with face-to-face because Priority One Bank will make you their priority. Big opportunity for Ole Miss tomorrow. It's the brand in North Carolina. So there will be some extra attention, I think, paid on this game than usual. So you get the opportunity to take down a brand. You get the opportunity to take a step forward as a program, continue to build momentum. You get an opportunity to give Matt Morrell and Jamin Brakefield the postseason that they've deserved, considering what they've endured at times in their time at Ole Miss. And I'm really excited to see how that team responds tomorrow against what looks like a pretty scrappy and talented North Carolina squad. So we'll be live after the game. Really looking forward to talking to you when that one's over. In the meantime, y'all have a great rest of your day, and I will talk to you after the game on Friday. See you then.